Valentino, the people's custodian, this is Kaito. Life is a stage, and we are the actors, and everybody have a part to play. Like a never-ending movie with all different characters, each one have a role to portray. Down to the scavengers and them barristers, all them doctors and lawyers, and these ministers. So this honorable this and this honorable that, and this lady so and so is a part all them people playing. I want you to know. So don't blame the politician anytime you find you get bad administration. Oh no, that was meant to be. The fella is playing his role superbly. Now don't blame the judges for their injustice. Why blame the rastas, I say? It's a part we come out of it. This movie starts in the Garden of Eden. The star and co-star was Adam and Eve. They played their part, now they are dead, but not forgotten. And when I study the role of Adam, it makes me grieve. Shows man should be able to take example and see from the beginning, woman was trouble, but then your rule is according to your script, I say, and your fate will be judgment day. And according to the part that you play, the master go pay. Now down to the little children, from the time they born, they join life great movie. But some of us fathers, my friend, through some wicked women, never saw our baby. Although abortion is just an act, believe me friends, I don't like that part at all. Plenty women go bad when the curtain falls. Say what you want. Believe I'm not joking. The women are the greatest performers for me. Their role always important, and down to their love making, these people could win an academy. They could put you in heaven. They could put you in hell. Woman could put man places man would shame to tell. So then a man must want to kill because the part he have to play is to love with his heart and soul. So you see where the females always have the better role. So don't blame Christine Killer just because she wrecked the lives of some politicians. She played a sexy character and she caught Pufumo with her sexy actions. So we should tip our hats to England and say hurrah for good old Christine, the greatest actress, no doubt, that the world has seen. Trinidad have some scenes that I just go often. The acting is greater than on Broadway. Not even on the movie screens. You just see people perform like Trinidadians are talking about, man, how they could play. Trinidad, as we all know, chief role is Kaiso. Then Peter in playing pan and dancing limbo. But for playing the part of smart man and smart woman, I could bet my hand. And for creating a big impression is a Trinidadian. Now the ambitious guy with the jacket and tie, who walks the road and hold up his head high. You would shock to know where that same ambitious fella head does go. But it's a part he come out to play, and we really can't treat the fella with scorn. And as they say, the show must go on. Yeah! Brother Valentino!
Brother Valentino, good evening to you and welcome to Politics 101. An early start tonight because we have some later engagements. Welcome to those of you who've joined us early. Welcome to Politics 101, wherever you're joining us from, whether you're joining us from in Guyana or you're joining us from outside of Guyana. Welcome to Politics 101. Those of you who are joining us from Linden, a very special welcome to you. Those of you who are joining us from the United States, a lot of action there. President Biden has dropped out of the race, and Kamala Harris has now picked up the mantle as the standard bearer for the Democrats. Lots of expectations, people holding their breath. You never know. People have been asking me my view with American politics. Anything happens, it's not over until it's over. What we do know is an African-American candidate, an African-American woman. If she becomes president, she will be the first woman, not just the first African-American woman, the first woman to become president in the United States of America. What's a long way to go before November, more than 3 months to go. And in American politics, 3 months is a long time. But I hope people are motivated, those of you in the United States and are able to vote. I hope you're motivated now to go out to the polls and to cast your vote in the right way. The most important thing is to go out there and to cast your vote. To go out there and cast your vote. Those who were saying that Biden was not up to it, now you have a chance. You have a chance to help make history. We made history in 2008 when Barack Obama was elected, and Barack Obama won because he did a simple thing. He got 40% of the white vote the first time around, and in the second time around, he got 39% of the white vote. So he had to find 60% of his votes somewhere else. And he got those votes from African Americans, ran up the score, heavy turnout. Hispanic ran it up to 70 odd. And then we had some other ethnic votes coming in. What Barack Obama did in 2008 was to upturn the Southern strategy by the Republicans. The Republicans had been winning with the Southern strategy. That is to run up the score 80%, 90% of the white votes in the South, and then split the white vote in the North 50-50, sometimes 55-45. And that was enough for them to win. They didn't need black votes. They didn't go after black votes because they didn't need it. They didn't need those black votes. They got some Hispanic votes. But they won elections by running up the score on the white Southern votes, 90%, 95%. The Republicans were taking the South. And then they needed half of the white votes in the North. And that was what they used to win. And so Obama came up with a new strategy. It was the deracialization strategy, which was coined by Professor Charles V. Hamilton, who wrote the book Black Power with Stokely Carmichael, later known as Kwame Ture. And Professor Hamilton came up with what he called the deracialization strategy, in which he said to Democrats that you need to tone down any overt appeal to African Americans. And you need to get to African Americans through policies. Try to avoid African American issues. Try to avoid African American quote unquote radicals. And he suggested that to the Democrats to win. And Obama embraced that. As you remember, when Obama's priest spoke out, Obama turned his back on his pastor. He went to Philadelphia and he gave a speech in which he talked to white people. And so the strategy there, the deracialization strategy, was used by Obama to win in 2008, 2012. And so when people look back on the Obama presidency, they would ask, well, what did he do for African Americans? And he really did not do any particular policy for African Americans, because that was part of the deracialization strategy. He evolved on the issue of same-sex marriage, for example, recognizing gays and lesbians. He did something directly for them. He kept the status quo in place, which meant that he catered to white people. And there was not any direct policy to Black people, Black Americans. But the fact of the matter is that he was able to win with that strategy 2 times, because he was able to hold on to 40% of the white votes on both occasions. Now, is that deracialization strategy still a strategy for the Democrats to win? Many Black political scientists are arguing no. In fact, Biden won in 2020 by directly appealing to African Americans. He went to South Carolina and appealed to Southern Blacks, and Southern Blacks turned out for him. He was able to capture the Democratic nomination because of the Black vote, especially the Black vote in the South and in the cities that are dominated by Black Americans. And when he got to the national elections, in a very tight race, he was able to prevail precisely because of the Black vote, in particular the Black woman vote. And so therefore, political scientists are arguing that the age of deracialization is over. In fact, for the Democrats to win, they will have to not deracialize, but racialize their appeal. I must point out that Hillary Clinton, when she ran against Donald Trump and lost, she adopted the deracialization strategy. Avoid any direct appeal to African Americans, and she tried to appeal to the white working class. And we know what happened in the end. She got more votes, but she lost. She lost the electoral college. Biden did the opposite. Biden, as I said, appealed to African Americans, even as he appealed to the white working class. He went to the South there and appealed to African Americans. Now, what is the strategy? What is the strategy for Kamala Harris? What is the strategy? Should our strategy be the deracialization strategy that was adopted by Obama? Should it be a strategy where she appealed to women, as Hillary Clinton tried to do and didn't succeed? Should she make a direct pitch to African Americans and hope to run up the score among African Americans, among Hispanics, among young people, especially young white women, and win with that strategy? We will see in the coming weeks what kind of strategy. Remember, there is still a reservoir, a big reservoir, a big chunk, a critical mass of white voters in America who are still to come to grips with African Americans being the principal leaders. They're still to come to grips with that. There is a critical mass of people. And so, as a Black candidate, and yes, she's part Indian, but in America, being part Indian doesn't really resonate in terms of race. The fact that you're part Black makes you Black still. And so she's seen as African American. She's not seen as Indian American. She's a woman. America's never elected a woman as president. In fact, when a woman was on the ticket the first time in 1984, Geraldine Ferraro, yes, I think I get that right. She was the vice president to Walter Mondale, vice president candidate. And Mondale lost every state except his own state, Minnesota, and the Washington, D.C., Geraldine Ferraro. A woman on the ticket, and women voted against that woman. Hillary Clinton, of course, as we said, ran for president in 2016, and we know what happened. So Kamala Harris is going into this as a woman, and America's not shown that it is hospitable to electing women. And she's going into it as a Black person, African American. And so it will be interesting to see what strategy she adopts. What is her path to victory? Some people are saying she should have a running mate. Running mates have never won up to win an election for candidate. At the end of the day in America, it is the candidate that has to win his or election. So it's interesting to see what path Kamala Harris is going to adopt to win the presidency. She has one thing else that is going to be a difficulty. Like Obama, when he started, Kamala Harris does not naturally appeal to African Americans. She doesn't naturally. She has not been, like I said, strident on African American issues. She has tended to be middle of the road. She was a prosecutor in which she prosecuted a lot of African American men, and the community holds that against her. So she has to overcome that hurdle. Obama had the same problem. Obama was not seen as African American. In fact, Obama is not African American. His father came from Kenya, from the Eastern Africa. Eastern Africa was not engaged in the triangular slave trade. And so African Americans or blacks, Africans who came to the New World, who came to the Americas, they came from West Africa. And so to be African American in a ethnic sense, your roots have to be West African roots. And so in that sense, Obama was not African American. And African Americans made that known. Obama was black. And sometimes we in Guyana get confused with the term. African American is the cultural ethnic term, just as African Guyanese is cultural. Black is a political concept. Black is a concept that came into being during slavery, where whiteness was deemed superior and blackness as inferior. And over time, black people have embraced their blackness and to use that inferior status to advance their case for humanity. And so sometimes people don't like to use the term black, and they say all kinds of things. Black is a political term. African American, African Guyanese, African Caribbean, that's the more cultural ethnic term. And so Obama was not seen as African American. Blacks, African Americans were supporting Hillary Clinton against him because they felt in a transactional way Hillary Clinton as a white candidate could get more done for African Americans than a long shot black candidate. And it was when Obama went and won in Iowa, all white state, 98% white, and they ran a close second in New Hampshire. And then African Americans said, so they have voted for you. We now gonna make you black. And they make him black. They make him African American. They adopted him. And I remember them using his wife and say she's African American. And the fact that he's married to an African American makes him African American. The rest is history. The rest is history. Kamala Harris has never really embraced our African American identity or Jamaican identity, you know. In fact, some people argue that she has embraced more of our Indian identity or Asian Indian identity. Her mother, of course, was from India. And so she has some work to do in the African American community. But African Americans, as they did with Obama, they will quickly understand the dynamics and they've begun to embrace her. So our task there may not be as tough as one may think. We will be watching that race because it has implications for us in Guyana. Many people argue that if the Republicans were to come back to power, then they may embrace the government which they put in power in Guyana. It was the Republicans under Donald Trump that helped to install the PPP into power. And many people feel that if they were to come back to power, that they may well go down that road again. Suffice to say, what happens there has implications for Guyana and for the rest of the world. Now, why did I start here tonight? I start on this subject tonight because we in Guyana, we are likely to have an election in the next year or so, or within the next year. And the question is, what is the strategy for winning an election if you are in the opposition ranks? That has always been a big issue. The PNC over the years, I think, has made the fatal error of believing that they can win with crossover votes. And so they have built their strategy, their electoral strategy, on crossover vote coming mainly from Indian Guyanese. And it has been a failed strategy. It has been, in effect, what the PNC has done over time is adopt Professor Hamilton's deracialization strategy, that they have avoided dealing frontally and directly with Black issues. For example, if the presidential candidate for the PNC has always been African, and they make sure that they find an Indian as window dressing, and that Indian became the prime ministerial candidate. Sometimes they had to go outside the PNC to find an Indian. And they'd never gone with an all-African ticket, so to speak, even though they are qualified Africans to fill both. So they adopted the deracialization strategy, and it has never paid dividends to them. It has never paid dividends to them. In 2015 and 2012, the Indians who came over to the opposition, they came over with Moses Nagamutu, and they went to the AFC. They Indianized the AFC, in other words. They didn't come to the PNC. And so therefore, the PNC/APNU was able to win with the AFC, and the AFC brought the Indians votes. Now, once the AFC brought the Indian votes into the coalition, they're going into a coalition with a predominantly African party. And so they were not able to deliver to Indian Guyanese what they promised them, because they did not control the government. And those Indian Guyanese voters went right back to the PPP. Is the strategy this time, is the strategy to find an Indian Guyanese who can bring Indian votes over, or is the coalition to go back to the old strategy of putting their hopes on crossover votes? I, as you all have known, have put openly on the table what I see as a path to victory. And I am saying that we have never been able, the opposition has not been able in recent times, to get African Guyanese turnout over 80%. It means that there are about 40,000 African Guyanese who do not vote, who have not voted in recent elections. I think the last big turnout among African Guyanese would have been in the 1997 election. And ever since then, we have seen voter apathy among African Guyanese. And I am arguing that this time around, we need to target that 40,000 African Guyanese voters. If indeed it's about 40,000, then that is about 8 seats that it's there that we don't target. And so I am saying that the strategy going into these elections should begin with running up the score among African Guyanese. That is, to target those African Guyanese voters that have not been going out to the polls. First of all, we have to find out why they have not been going out. We'll have to do polling and all that kind of stuff. We have to go into the community to find out why. I have a theory as to why they have not gone out. But we need to find that out. Why more than 20% of our voters in recent elections, meaning African Guyanese voters, have not gone out? And I think if we can find that out, then we will be able to target them and to get an extra 2, 3, 4, 5 seats from among that group. Now that becomes the basis of your mobilization. You then, the opposition has been able to get about 40% of the Amerindian votes, the indigenous people's votes. I think we should try to hold on to that. We should try to increase it as much as possible. Now, the Indian Guyanese votes must not be discarded. But if you are the opposition, that includes the PNC, that is the hardest group for you to crack. It's not impossible. It's not impossible. There are ways in which you can get a seat or two from Indian Guyanese. And I'm saying the way you do it is that the Indian Guyanese in the opposition, they have to go into the Indian Guyanese community and work for those votes. Work for those votes. And they have to be able to speak to those people. I'm not saying African Guyanese leaders should not go into the Indian communities. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying the people who should be leading the charge in the Indian Guyanese community should be Indian Guyanese leaders in the opposition. They should be leading the charge. And the African Guyanese should be there to assist them. Because I think that you can get a seat or two from disgruntled Indian Guyanese. And I don't believe that you should go and fool people. I think you go to the Indian Guyanese community and you make your case to them. But the best people to make that case, I am arguing, is Indian Guyanese leaders. They're going to believe them more than they believe me, for obvious reasons. And so I think our strategy, our path to victory, has to be to get an extra 3 or 4 seats from our natural constituency. That's your insurance. You hold on to your Amerindian vote, 40, 45%, and you work hard for 2 or 3 seats among Indians, Indian Guyanese. And I think that's a winning strategy. I'm saying the Indian Guyanese vote is the one that is the hardest for you to, I don't think a case, a credible case, can be made to Indian Guyanese en masse, a critical section of that community. Let us not fool ourselves. For all our rhetoric, the PPP is looking after Indian people. They may not look after them in ways that they would deem to be correct and so on, but they're looking after them. We tend to say they don't. Let us be factual. I mean, the PPP strategy since it has come to power is to look after its community. Definitely it's looking after the Indian elites first, the contractors and the family and friends and favorites, as the people in the APNU like to call them. They're looking after them first. But some of what they're giving them is trickling down into the Indian community. And then there are things like the cash grants and so on, and hampers and all these things they're giving to poor Indians. Now, that is not enough for poor Indians, but it is more than what they're giving to other ethnic groups. So to say that the PPP is not looking after Indian people, we are telling a lie to ourselves there. Yeah? They are not looking after them as they should. But the Indian community is getting some trickle down from the money that is going in through contracts and the cash grants that they're giving and so forth. And so if you want to get Indian votes, you have to overcome that. You have to overcome that. We don't have access to money to pour into the Indian Guyanese community. Ravidev says, look, if we want to get Indian, he's a big crossover vote man. He said, for us to win, we got to get crossover vote. But then as 5 minutes later, he said, the PPP will hold on to its base. And then 2 minutes later, he said, if the opposition want to get Indian vote, you got to go to the Indians and tell them how they're going to make money, because he say Indian people like money. And we are not able to do that, and we have to be frank about it. The Indian votes that will come over to an opposition that includes the PNC, you see, the PPP over decades, they have poisoned Indian mind about the PNC. You're a Burnham PNC and you're Indian, it's poison. On the black side, the PNC never poisoned black people's mind against the PPP and Jagan in the same way. They didn't. But Jagan and the PPP, they poisoned Indian minds against the PNC and Burnham. So any opposition that includes the PNC and Burnham, that think that you can go into the Indian Guyanese community and able to get votes easy, be fooling myself. And so therefore, we have to be very clear about strategy. African people have to come out and vote. Just as in the United States, if Kamala Harris is going to become president, African Americans will have to vote down to the last man, last woman, last youth. And in Guyana, it is the same thing we are facing. Our people have to vote. Now, African people, black people, are among the hardest people to get out to vote. But once you get them to the poll and they start voting, research has shown that they are the most reliable voting bloc. Black women in America, they are the most reliable voting bloc, even more than all white women and all white men. Reliable, once they start to vote. And I rather suspect that in Guyana it is the same. But we have got to get all those black people to go to the polls. And I'm saying we have to start doing that now. I am doing it because I have decided very openly that that's the path. I don't hear my brothers in the other parties talking about that. Maybe they don't believe that's the thing. But if you believe that that is your path to victory, you've got to work for it. It's not going to come easy. You've got to work for it. And I think that's the challenge that we have now. It will have to take some doing to get the PNC and maybe the AFC to buy into this strategy of driving African Guyanese to the polls. And I am saying that now. There is ongoing registration. You all go out and register. Go out and register. And once the elections are a go, we got to get our people to vote. And to get our people to vote is not easy, because there's a lot of voter apathy. People remember the last time they put power in our hands. We did not necessarily deliver in a pointed way to them. And so we have a lot of work to do. So rather than try, I would say, to go after a seat or to put 90% of your energies going after 1 or 2 seats in the Indian Guyanese community, and put 10% of your energy in going after 4 or 5 seats in the African community is crazy. I would say you divide it, you put 60 to 70% of your energy in getting those 4 or 5 African Guyanese seats and put the other 40% of your energy in getting the 1 or 2 Indian Guyanese seats. That's my, and of course, I don't shy away from race. I don't know that Aubrey would have this kind of conversation with you all, or Nigel may, but I can have this kind of frank conversation because I'm not afraid of being called a racist. I've been called that forever. You see? And so that is the challenge that we have. We have in Guyana. It's a challenge that Sister Kamala has in the United States, that we have to confront the fact that our people are our natural constituency. And we have to deal with them straight up. Because if you don't deal with them straight up, when you get power, you don't give them things. Because you said to yourself, well, you didn't put me there. You know, you all vote for me, but you all didn't put me there. And I think we made some mistakes during the coalition in that regard because we didn't embrace our own community. We took them for granted. So, sisters and brothers, that's where things are. At a later time, I will discuss Ralph from Quran, his column this past weekend, in which he called for house-to-house registration on a clean voters list. He's calling on his comrades in the PPP to bite the bullet and have a clean voters list. He says that the PPP should not have the lack of a clean voters list and biometrics as what he called it, as a humbug during the election. I think there's a lot to what Ralph is saying. And I agree with Ralph, because embedded in what Ralph is saying is that you can't expect to go back to an election with that voters list, rob without biometrics, and rob the election again. Or we get a saying in the black community, Watana carry me lap 2 times. Watana carry me lap 2 times. And I think Ralph understands that. Ralph understands the danger of going to another election with an unclean voters list, a bloated voters list that is open to manipulation. And he's not saying that, but embedded in what he's saying. He's saying, well, you know, the PPP should not have that hanging over their heads. Watana care where you lap 2 times. I think Ralph is smelling the coffee. He's smelling the bush tea, the Congo palm tea, and saying to his comrades, don't go down that road again. So there's where we are, sisters and brothers. I have to go a little early tonight. I'll be over at Globespan with Vincent Alexander, tumbling and rumbling with the ethnics over there who give the PPP ideology. So I'm leaving a little bit early tonight, and I started early because I knew I was going to be leaving a little bit early. But this conversation, I want you all to digest what I've put on the table. Of course, I put this on the table for future discussion. I have some people to thank for our Emancipation Fund. Oh God, I don't have that list right here in front of me. But please, those of you who have not yet contributed to our Emancipation Fund, please do. Now more than ever, we need to raise funds for our own emancipation activities, because the government is plunging a lot of government money into PPP events. They got some black people to front it. so as to torpedo our events. And we have launched this fund, and we said that we are going to share what we have with Buxton, Belladrum, and then Amstel, and with Coffee 250. Those are the 4 target groups that we are planning to. Some of you have made contributions. I'm inviting the rest of you to please make your contribution, no matter how small, and of course, no matter how big, right? We welcome those, and emancipation is upon us. It's upon us. It's in another day or two. We are entering the weekend, and the activities will kick off then. So please, the Cash App, the PayPal, the Zelle, the MMG, they're all there on the screen. And some of you have contributed in the last 24 hours. And I will thank you all tomorrow. I don't have the list on my desk here, but please, those of you who have not made your contribution, please do so now. And I am going to see you all tomorrow, 7 o'clock. Thank you all very much. And stay strong, because only with strength are we going to be able to persevere and in the end overcome.